afraid of the dark.
I remembered that the night before, I had gone to a friend's house for a party. It was supposed to be a huge drinking fest, and judging by the extraordinary chaos in the house and the people sleeping in various places, the party had definitely been a success. I shook the sleep off my friend's body as he snored loudly and got up. It was already 9 a.m. and I needed to be somewhere else to take care of some business. A cold shower and a strong cup of coffee brought me back to life. For about 20 minutes I tried to call a taxi, but the line was constantly busy. Finally, I decided that I couldn't wait any longer, so I left my friend's house and headed towards the road, hoping to hitch a ride. The morning fog hung low, obscuring the horizon and the empty road. I took a deep breath of the fresh morning air and walked for about a mile. A few cars passed by, but none of them stopped. As I crossed the road at the intersection, my attention was drawn to a faded wreath on a wooden, crooked cross by the side of the road. The cross had been there for years, and the wreath, which was periodically replaced, indicated that a tragedy had occurred at this very spot. As I turned my head towards the road, I saw a white minibus bearing down on me at full speed. Fear paralyzed me for a fraction of a second, turning my body to stone. I knew I had to move, but in that short moment, I analyzed my chances of survival, and they seemed slim. The piercing sound of brakes broke the silence of the morning forest, startling the birds into flight. I stood frozen in front of the minibus, unable to move a muscle. The yellow glow of the headlights pierced through the dissipating fog, shining directly into my eyes. It was only when the door of the minibus slowly opened that I snapped out of my trance. The bus was heading towards the city, and I figured it was my best option to get a ride with the driver. As I walked towards the minibus, I took a good look at it. It was small, with only 10 to 15 seats, painted white with 2 horizontal lines running down the middle. These buses used to circulate in the city when I was a kid. The vehicle's long years of service were evident from the orange patches of corrosion on the body and, in some places, black spots that looked like mold or fungus. The windows were covered in a thick layer of road grime, making it impossible to read the route number and list of stops. When I stepped into the minibus, the driver turned his head towards me and said,
"What's the matter, son? Are you trying to get yourself run over, or are you tired of living? If you're heading to the other side, I can give you a lift. Just say the word."
His gaze made me feel like he was looking through me rather than at me. There was something heavy in his expression, as if years of suffering, madness, despair, and loneliness had accumulated in his eyes, seeking an outlet. The driver's voice was emotionless and monotone, as if the words had been recorded separately and then pieced together. I didn't respond, I just kept walking and took a seat by the window. To my surprise, the minibus was completely empty. There were no other passengers. The driver hit the gas, and we slowly pulled away.
"You can keep them company?"
He suddenly added, waving his hand in my direction. Who is he talking about, I wondered. Is he tired and not making sense, or is he crazy? The thick layer of dust on the windows prevented me from seeing anything clearly, and I had no desire to engage in conversation with the driver. Despite his efforts, the minibus struggled to reach a decent speed, puttering along at 50 km/h at best. The driver then turned on some music, an old song that played on a loop. The dilapidated, dirty minibus, both inside and out, the absence of other passengers, and the peculiar driver all added to my unease. After driving for about half an hour, the minibus came to a stop.
"All right, everyone out," the driver said, "and remember to look both ways when crossing the road."
Without engaging in further discussion, or trying to understand whom he was addressing and whether he was of sound mind, I quickly got up and made my way to the exit. As the door opened and I stepped out, I was shocked and bewildered to find myself back at the same spot where I had boarded the minibus by the cross with the wreath. That, however, was not the most surprising part. It was the fact that it was now completely dark, whereas I had gotten on the minibus early in the morning. A month later, I struck up a conversation with another bus driver in our city, and he shared a chilling story with me. About 30 years ago, he began, there was an incident involving one of our drivers. I was young back then, but I remember it clearly. The driver, whose name I can't recall, was an excellent operator with a lot of experience. However, his eyesight had been deteriorating, and it became increasingly difficult for him to pass the medical exams required for the job. One day he was deemed unfit to drive and was scheduled to be retired. But the next day he showed up for work, started his bus, and drove off without telling anyone. That's when the tragedy unfolded. Some people were out in the countryside, picking mushrooms, and their children had run onto the road. He hit the children, and by the time their mother reached the scene, he had already loaded them into the bus and driven away. Neither the driver, nor the bus, nor the children were ever found, alive or dead. That's why there's a cross with a wreath at that spot, and it still stands there to this day.